Hi, my name is Terry Duran, and I am a nurse practitioner. And today we're going to talk about Texas resident rights and reporting. And there are several objectives to this course. Number one, we're going to talk about the principles underlying resident rights. Number two, we're going to talk about specific resident rights provisions. We're also going to discuss how residents can be encouraged and supported in exercising their rights. I also want to introduce you to what an ombudsman does and discuss how to report violations of resident rights. So let's get started. While residents of nursing homes have no fewer rights than anyone else, the combination of an institutional setting and the disability that put the person in the facility in the first place often places the resident in a vulnerable position. As a result, in 1987, Congress enacted the Nursing Home Reform Law that has since been incorporated into the Medicare and the Medicaid regulations. This law requires nursing homes to promote and protect the rights of each resident and places a strong emphasis on individual dignity and self-determination. In other words, it requires every nursing home resident be given whatever services are necessary to function at the highest level possible. Also, nursing homes must meet federal residents' right requirements if they participate in Medicare and Medicaid. Some states have resident rights in state law or regulation for nursing homes, licensed assisted living, adult care homes, and other board and care facilities. A person living in a long-term care facility maintains the same rights as an individual in the larger community. Specifically, residents of Texas nursing homes have all the rights, benefits, responsibilities, and privileges granted by the Constitution and laws of the state of Texas and the United States. They have the right to be free of interference, coercion, discrimination, and reprisal in exercising these rights as citizens or residents of the United States. Most of us don't think about the fact that we ourselves may need care in a long-term care facility at some point. You, as a resident yourself, would want to know what your rights are, and you would want to be assured that you are protected and that those rights are protected. We have the benefit in our country that these rights are protected by law. So if you were to become a resident of a nursing home, you would be given a pamphlet describing these rights by the long-term care facility. So we are going to talk to you as if you were the resident. Number one, you have the right to dignity and respect. You have the right to live in safe, decent, and clean conditions. You have the right to be free from abuse, neglect, and exploitation. You have the right to be treated with dignity, courtesy, consideration, and respect. You have the right to be free from discrimination based on age, race, religion, sex, nationality, disability, marital status, or source of payment. You also have the right to practice your own religious beliefs. You have the right to keep and use personal property and have it secure from theft or loss. You have the right to choose and wear your own clothes. You have the right to be free from any physical or chemical restraint used for discipline or convenience and not required to treat your medical symptoms. And you have the right to receive visitors. You also have freedom of choice. That means you have the right to make your own choices regarding personal affairs, care, benefits, and services. You have the right to choose your own doctor at your own expense or through a healthcare plan. You have the right to manage your own financial affairs in the least restrictive method or to delegate that responsibility to another person. You have the right to access money and property that you have deposited with the facility and to have an accounting of your money and property that are deposited with the facility and of all financial transaction made with or on your behalf. You also have the right to participate in activities inside and outside the facility. Also, to place in your room an electronic monitoring device that is owned and operated by you or provided by your guardian or legal representative. You also have the right to refuse to perform services for the person or the facility providing services. You have the right to use advanced directives as defined in the Texas Health and Safety Code. And you have the right to designate a guardian or representative to ensure quality stewardship of your affairs if protective measures are required. You have the right to have privacy and confidentiality. Privacy, including privacy during visits, phone calls, and while attending to personal needs. Also, to have facility information about you maintained as confidential. To send and receive unopened mail and to receive help in reading or writing correspondence. You have a right to participate in your own care, to receive all care necessary to have the highest possible level of health, to participate in developing a plan of care, to refuse treatment, and to refuse to participate in experimental research. You're allowed to refuse treatment, care, or services, and to receive information about prescribed psychoactive medication from the person who prescribes the medication or that person's designee. You also have the right to have any psychoactive medications prescribed and administered in a responsible manner, as mandated by the Texas Health and Safety Code, and to refuse to consent to the prescription of psychoactive medications. Now, I'm just going to go off on an aside here to explain a few things to you. Psychoactive medications are sometimes prescribed inappropriately as chemical restraints, which means instead of actually restraining somebody physically, the medication is the restraint. However, many of these psychoactive medications are actually dangerous for the elderly. So there is a criteria called the Beers criteria that the prescriber should be familiar with and that discusses these different medications. Now, let's go back to our teaching. You also have the right to access personal and clinical records, which will be maintained as confidential and may not be released without your consent. You have the right to communicate in your native language to acquire or receive treatment, care, or services. In reference to transfers and discharges, you have the right to not be relocated within the facility except in accordance with nursing facility regulations. You have the right to discharge yourself from the facility unless you have been determined mentally incompetent, or to not be discharged from the facility except in accordance with nursing facility regulations. You also need to receive a 30-day written notice sent to you, your legal authorized representative, or a family member, and you can appeal the discharge within 10 days of receiving notice in a Medicaid facility. You have the right to be readmitted to the facility as provided by nursing facility regulations. As far as information, you have the right to receive a written statement or admission agreement describing the services provided by the facility and the related charges, to also be informed of Medicare or Medicaid benefits. You should also receive a copy of the Statement of Resident Rights and to be informed of any revisions. And you have the right to be informed in a language you understand about your total medical condition, recommended treatment, and expected results, including reasonably expected effects, side effects, and associated risks, and be notified whenever there is a significant change in your condition. Finally, you have the right to complain about care or treatment and receive a prompt response to resolve the complaint without fear of reprisal or discrimination, and to organize or participate in any group that presents residents' concerns to the administrator of the facility. And finally, your rights may be restricted only to the extent necessary to protect you or others, or to protect the rights of others, particularly those rights relating to privacy and confidentiality. Now that these rights have been explained, unfortunately, those rights also need to be protected from those that would abuse those rights. But how is this done? After moving into a nursing home or assisted living facility, a resident may need help to continue a life of dignity, respect, choice, and as much independence as possible. Fortunately, in the United States, every state has what's called an ombudsman program, including Texas. So what is an ombudsman? And I still have trouble saying that word. Well, it is a Swedish word and it means legal representative. So it is a legal representative often appointed by a government or organization to investigate complaints made by individuals in the interests of the citizens or employees. In the context of long-term care, Texas has a long-term care ombudsman program. And let's watch a video that explains a little bit about that.
The word ombudsman can be tricky to say sometimes.
I had to look it up in the dictionary.
Yeah, it took me a while to get used to ombudsman.
It is odd sounding. It means to me a friend for our residents.
Most of the time when I ask people if they know what an ombudsman is, their eyes kind of roll back a little bit and get glossy.
But once they do understand it and they understand what we're here for, we're here to help the residents.
Volunteer ombudsmen help residents by allowing them to voice their concerns or issues. It may be the food that often arises that they may have a like or dislike, and I can try to find out the right people to talk to about getting that kind of issue resolved.
Bridget has helped me with my dietary needs, and it has really made a big difference in my life. I could not have done it on my own.
The role of an ombudsman is not a regulator. An ombudsman is a resident advocate.
And some people say, what does that word advocate mean? And it basically means that you stand beside someone, you listen to their concerns, and you try to resolve that.
They are key problem solvers in a facility. They are here to address concerns in a confidential manner.
Sometimes people think they're alone, and this program ensures that they are not alone. The residents aren't alone, and neither are the family members.
There are times that little things come up that need a mediator, things that I couldn't handle, things if I'm out of town that I can't take care of, and it gives us a level of comfort to know Mom can call Greg.
Sometimes for families, we're just that extra support. They have a lot of things going on in their life. We can help them get the best possible individualized care for their loved one.
The first time I called, I was a little scared, but to see that Viviana was on the other side, she encouraged me. She said, I take care of it from here on. If you have any other questions, call me at any time.
Once family members know who we are and what we can do for them and their loved one, it's a great working relationship. You want to have somebody in your side that will talk to you, will explain regulations.
In 5 years, I've called twice, but those were very important phone calls to me, and they were fixed by Ombudsman. It's like 10 pounds of weight goes off of you, and it's given to Ombudsman.
So just make that phone call.
Ombudsman is a resource. It's an advocate, but it's just a phone call away.
An ombudsman is an advocate that can help ensure that residents get the care they want and are treated with the dignity they deserve. Ombudsmen support and promote the health, safety, and rights of the residents. To be an ombudsman, a person completes state-approved training and is certified by the state long-term care ombudsman. An ombudsman advocates for quality of life and care for people living in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. And the best part is that their services are free and confidential. When a resident is admitted into a long-term care facility, taking extra time to create that positive environment goes a long ways. So try to encourage the residents and their families to get to know the staff, their names, and their duties. Encourage them to educate staff about the residents' likes and dislikes, their daily routine and interests. Encourage the family to attend the care plan or service plan meetings and to talk to staff about their concerns. They should also be encouraged to keep a log of concerns and the actions taken, and maybe even join or organize a resident or family council. And then, of course, if there are any questions or if they do need an advocate, they should seek help from the Texas Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program. The number to contact them is 1-800-252-2412. It's also important to know that the Office of the State Long-Term Care Ombudsman is independent, but it is within the Texas Health and Human Services system. And if you want some more information, their address is listed there and the website. And you, as a long-term healthcare worker, if you think somebody would benefit from this advocacy, please provide them with this information because it is very important. So let's move on to the next part. It is a legal obligation for long-term healthcare workers to report abuse, neglect, or exploitation. And this can be done calling the Texas Department of State Health Services at 1-800-458-9858 to report suspected abuse or neglect of people who are living in a long-term care facility. You can call this number to report abuse that also occurs in assisted living facilities, day activities, so adult daycares, and other health services. You can report care concerns about home health and hospice agencies and even intermediate care facilities. If the victim is a resident of a long-term care facility that receives Medicaid funding, report the criminal abuse, neglect, or exploitation to the Attorney General's Medicaid Fraud Control Unit at 1-800-252-8011. Abuse of a senior who is not in a healthcare facility can be reported to Adult Protective Services at 1-800-252-5400. Always a big question is, will anyone know who made the report? HHS keeps your name and that of the other person confidential unless required to release it by law. However, if you choose to remain anonymous, HHS has no way to let you know the results of the investigation. They may also forward your report to another agency if it should be reported to or investigated by that agency. What happens once the report is made? HHS employees will conduct an unannounced investigation at the facility. The investigation may consist of observations, a medical record review, interviews with the person that reported it, residents, staff, family members, and others. But once HHS concludes the investigation, the findings are reported to the reporter or the complainant, either in writing or by phone. In conclusion, resident rights are protected by law. The law ensures that a nursing home resident does not lose his or her self-determination, dignity, or quality of life while living in a nursing home. Resident rights cover a broad range of care and aspects of daily living, and these rights are in place to make sure a loved one is not taken advantage of in a nursing home. They are also in place to make sure a loved one is safe and comfortable. And always remember that these laws may benefit you someday. Thank you so much for joining me on the first module of this teaching. You might want to take a break before you start Module 2, in which we're going to talk about self-determination.